Hello everyone, welcome to DRV. This is Aswathy Alex, and I would like to remind you all by saying is that being disciplined is the greatest form of self-love. And today's topic for discussion is that how far a coalition government can safeguard the federal aspirations of a democratic nations. I know by hearing the coalition word, you must be thinking that why I've used coalition government in a good sense. Coalition government is when more than one or more single party combines or collates to form one single government just because there's a hung parliament or a hung government when no single party has gotten the majority of votes after the general elections. And that is when the coalition government comes in. Yes, there is a sense of instability associated to it, but still there is a safeguards of federal aspirations in a democratic nation. So we are going to discuss all that in detail, so stay tuned. So India as nature has unitary bias, even though ours is a federal structure where there is internal autonomy and other forms of rights given to the state governments as well. It is a unitary bias, wherein the center has majority of power, and yes, with the act concurrent list and all, they're getting more power over the state. And with the coalition government, they can ensure that there wouldn't be any forms of centralization of power. So when the coalition governments comes to form from the other regions of India, they make sure that their individual goals as a state and a region is being taken care of. At least centers, orders and circulars are not in contradiction to the state objectives and goals of it. They can at least make sure and check for that. And ever since the elections of 2014, we have found that that has put a full stop to this coalition government, which has come up like sort of like a norm for the past 25 years. So let's see and discuss how far the stopping of this coalition government or how far one single party coming up as a majority and how far of socio-political changes are brought into our nation. And let's discuss that and how far this contradicts the union government and more importantly the sense of democracy here in India. So starting off the bat, we are having one single party having majority of people and majority of seats occupying in the parliament, which exceeds the number of oppositions. So why do we have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha? Rajya Sabha are representatives of the state, and Lok Sabha is when the oppositions are also there present who could contradict, who could question everyone, even the executive. So we are having less number of opposition here starting off who are there not able to question us. And even if they are there, especially with the controversies of Pegasus and internal security, and also for the questions regarding ever since the farmers are protesting in the Delhi, now they got the justice, but ever since they started protesting, the oppositions were vehemently opposing the political party that was present in the executives, but still they were silenced. And to a larger extent, that some people were suspended, and any forms for dissent were considered to be seditious in nature by them. And right from the 2014 up until 2022, right now we are standing in February, we can see that the relationship between the center and the state has strained so much to a larger extent that even people wearing hijabs are considered controversial. And forms of communalism has seeped in so much to the souls of these young nation that they cannot distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. And the central government started to implement orders and administrative systems without the consultations of everyone, without taking everyone's confidence into motion, starting from the demonetization up until the GSTs. So all these taken whereby the Council of Ministers and the Cabinet and the Parliament as a power is being diminishing. So why do we have a legislative in our system? So demonetization was a very good initiative started by the government. It was implemented. Yes, we all need a sudden jolt for that, but the problem was that it didn't hit the target. And GST was implemented in a very hasty manner, but GST as a system is something a need of an hour. We all needed GST right now because we cannot have these cascading forms of taxation, and this really unburdened lots of people and really did help the other sectors to grow as well. But since it was implemented in a hasty manner, still not many states have to get GST backlogs. Many states have to get their shares of GSTs and returns. And what really riled up the state government was that the center's absolute authority over the cadre allocations of these bureaucrats, that is the IAS, IPS officers, and that too really riled up the state government. So the center's moral authority to be a neutral arbiter is at low. And let's not forget that the words like fraternity and secularism has completely blown out of the window, and the words like communalism and dog whistles are again formed. So dog whistles is essentially used by these political people, and this is intended only to the people to hear, the people belonging to the same sectors or same categories of religion. The other opposition cannot understand because they are using by certain codes and wordings that only the people of same category and religion can understand. So this was actually starting off in a very subtle manner, and it's now starting to look at the hijab controversies of Karnataka. So how can someone's religious modesty affecting someone else, forcing that someone to have this modesty to shed their clothing in order for them to continue the education? But since dog whistles are not direct forms of communications, this could be listed under Article 19.1, that is right to expression and right to freedom of expressions. But any forms of dissent published in social media or in any forms of public platform, that will be considered seditious by the central government. And when you're talking about communalism induced political campaigns and political support, we can find recently a statement or a remark said by the UP's chief minister, remarks based on certain other categories of states like Kashmir, Kerala, and West Bengal. So these were the slight remarks passed on to them on the power or the backing of the central government. And communalism as a system has taken form to a larger extent that mob lynching has dramatically increased for the past 4 years, to say the least, has actually wanted to implement the mob lynching rule. But this was actually struck down by the union government, saying that why do we have to consider a different bill for the mob lynching? This should be considered under the IPC 300 of the murder. But still, we are having rampant increase of mob lynching on the basis of religious lines. And not to forget that on the other side, we have religious anti-conversion bill. So if someone gets married to a different religion or in an intercaste marriage, so there will be controversies and other problems because they're having a backing of a bill right now. That is, if people from two religions got get married, and if one person got converted to the other, and that will be nullified, and that is a serious problem in a democratic nation where people have right to choose. So right now on February 15, 2022, is this the India that our forefathers or the national freedom strugglers wanted to achieve? Is this the forms of Indian national democratic system that we all hope to live in future? So we have to answer all that. So in between all the ruckus and commotions, let's not forget that ours was a free nation. It is still a free nation, but we are not letting us to be a free nation. So live and let live. This is what our nation intends to be yet. Jai Hind.